Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A Better You. My name is Joshua Nugent, and today I have a very special topic that I want to discuss. And before we get into the topic, I just want to take a moment to just appreciate the present moment and how powerful being in the present moment is. For myself, I sometimes like to fantasize about the future, or thoughts of the past will come up into my mind. And one of the things that I like to do to bring myself back into the present moment is to just bring a slight awareness to the breath. And every time that we do that, every time that we put focus in on the breath and we become aware of it and we start to live in the present moment, it's truly a wonderful thing. Sometimes, speaking for myself, and I'm not perfect at it, but sometimes, future worries will pop up into my mind, things that I have to do, work wise, or paying off my bills, and just trying to figure out, what how am I going to reach point A to point B in terms of my career. And it's very easy to get lost in that. Very easy to get lost in trying to plan for the future. And, sometimes, it may not be future tripping, but for some people, and I was at this point in my life at one point, where thoughts of the past would haunt me. I would think about certain memories that were too hard to think about, and I would bury them. And I wouldn't want to face those memories, face those thoughts. And both times, with the past and the future thoughts, our minds are trying to avoid the solution, and that solution is being present in the moment, in the now, in the here and the now. So I like to sometimes just take a deep breath in and and let it all out slowly, just to remind myself, that I am in the present moment, and that it's okay to be in the present moment. I am right where I need to be in the present moment. And if no one has told you today, you are also where you need to be as well. You are totally you're totally fine where you're at. Sometimes maybe there are things that you want to have better, things that you want your situation to be better, and maybe there's thoughts of the past that haunt you. But as long as we continue to be present and we actively work towards becoming the solution instead of trying to find it elsewhere, then those thoughts tend to the volume tends to lower in our minds, and the tapes don't keep playing over and over. So with that being said, today is a very special episode for me, because today I get to talk about what is Dharma recovery. So, for those who don't know, I am a recovering addict, and part of my program, part of what I do for my sobriety, is work a program, and that program is called Dharma Recovery. So, Dharma Recovery is essentially a 12-step program. But instead of following, the 12 steps of AA, Dharma takes Buddhist practice and principles, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and we use that as our 12 steps. So, in my hand currently is my copy of Dharma Recovery, or Recovery Dharma. And for those who are interested, this book is, you could buy this off on Amazon. It's really cheap. It's about $5. Not a very expensive book. And the book is not very long. It's about 112 pages. And there's many different sections and different... the book breaks down in different ways. It's not just showing you about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. It's also showcasing different types of meditations. It also gives you a little history on it. And it also breaks down each of the Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and also shows you towards the back of the book. It showcases how a Dharma meeting, a Recovery Dharma meeting is run. So maybe towards the end, I will read what a meeting is like, or I may save it for another episode. So with this, I feel like I can break each one down into its own specific episode. So basically, I just want to share, because there is a lot of knowledge and there's a lot of things that I may be throwing at you, and it may be overwhelming and it may be a lot. So I will do my best to explain everything briefly, and maybe for future episodes I might break them down further. So some people may be asking, like, what exactly is Dharma recovery? So as I stated earlier, Dharma recovery is essentially, it takes the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path of in Buddhism and uses that as a 12-step program. So for those of you who do not know what the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path are, the Four Noble Truths, and starting with that, the first one is that there is suffering. The second one, there is a cause of suffering. The third one, there is an end to suffering. And the fourth one, there is a path to the end of suffering. And the Eightfold Path is wise understanding, wise intention, wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood, wise effort, wise mindfulness, and wise concentration. So, to break down essentially how I got, and I think it would be a good thing to explain how I got into it a little bit. Maybe that might break it down a little bit better. So, when I was in rehab, broken, total mess, emotionally, a little bit physically, and very much so spiritually. In rehab, they recommend people to work a 12-step program. So the rehab I was in offered either Alcoholics Anonymous or Dharma Recovery. So Dharma Recovery piqued my interest because I have a group of friends that introduced me to Buddhism, and I was interested in learning more about it. And as soon as I got into it and I saw how the book was of Recovery Dharma and what it had to offer, I was instantly hooked. And I took it very seriously because this was my livelihood. This was something that I really wanted to get was to be sober and to understand what it means to be sober, how to live a sober life, how to be there for people, how to love myself, how to just be there for myself and for others, and to just show up each day, day in and day out. And, not every day is going to be perfect, but, at least I'm showing up. At least, I'm here letting the world know, and also myself too, know that I can do this. And, I met some people that were also involved in Dharma and Recovery Dharma, and they showed me what they know, and that was how I got involved in Recovery Dharma. And it instantly hooked me, piqued my interest. I guess another thing to really go into is like Buddhism, because that's what Dharma recovery is based off of. So Buddhism may be defined as a religion. I don't classify it as that. I define it more as a way of life. Buddhism, to my understanding and to my knowledge, is not asking you to believe in any god or deity, but more so asking you to search within yourself and to find that inner strength within yourself, but also the inner peace within yourself. And when it talks about the Four Noble Truths, it's essentially, and the Eightfold Path, it's essentially what you're doing is you're trying to understand what causes your suffering or your pain, and just trying to figure out where your pain lies, what causes it, why is it happening, how is it happening. And then once you understand your suffering, then you move on to the Eightfold Path, kind of like a guideline to how to live your life every day through those eight principles, and just going off again and just reading them off again. Sorry, trying to find the page. Wise understanding, wise attention, wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood, wise effort, wise mindfulness, and wise concentration. So we take each of those and we try to apply them to our everyday life, so that our suffering or our pain isn't as, it's treatable. It's not as loud anymore. And for some people, they may be confused, and I certainly was. One of the Four Noble Truths is that there is a path to the end of suffering. That can sound a little confusing. So before I speak anymore, because I feel like I'm bouncing off the walls, just because I'm just so excited about finally being able to talk about this. I guess for the remainder of this episode, I'm going to talk about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and maybe just like what I went through and how I went through each one. So for the first one, that there is suffering, and in the book, in the back of the book, where there is it showcases like the meeting, how to run a Dharma meeting. It says that number one, there is suffering. We commit to understanding the truth of suffering. So for myself, my suffering lied heavily within my past. All the things that built up over time. I carried a lot as a kid, and I carried a lot as a teenager, and It was one of those things that I buried it for so long. I buried so much emotional pain, trauma, and I never spoke about it. And it wasn't until in my 20s that I started to see, and through my drug addiction, that I started to see some of the pain was coming out. But I wasn't really sure how to deal with it, how to handle it in a healthy way. So my pain, and what I did to essentially try to cope with my pain, was I did drugs. I smoked a lot. I smoked a lot of marijuana. I drank a lot. I did psychedelics to cope with that pain. And coming to an understanding of your pain is a huge step. For some people, they may not be ready to admit their pain. I know for myself, for a while, I wasn't ready to admit that I had a problem. And that's the thing about suffering or the pain that you're going to go through, is that it's going to keep happening until you're ready to just finally give up and find a solution. And that's a huge step in the road to recovery, is admitting your suffering, admitting your pain. I know for myself, a lot of my pain lied within the past. There was some pain that was also future-based, future tripping, worrying about where I was going to end up, but it was mostly stuff that happened to me in the past. And that's not everyone. Not everyone's pain lies within their past. So, for myself, when I finally came to that, that resolution, I moved on to to number 2, the second noble truth. There is a cause of suffering. We commit to understanding that craving leads to suffering. So, what that means is understanding our cause. Like, why is this pain there? Why is this happening? Because now we're getting to the root of the issue. We're starting to question, where is this pain coming from? Why do I feel this pain? This is the second step that I took in trying to understand myself, understand my pain, my suffering. And this is very important to understand for the road that I was trying to walk down, the path that I was taking to sobriety, was understanding what was causing my pain. And once I understood that where my pain was, which was mostly in the past, and certain, certain future trips, certain future thinking, thoughts of, where I was going in life, that led me to the third noble truth. There is an end to suffering. We commit to understanding and experiencing that less craving leads to less suffering. So it doesn't necessarily mean that once you understand the cause of your suffering, that there is an end to it. That you'll feel no more suffering. And that's not necessarily what that means. It just means that, what you're experiencing and what you're understanding can lead you to a solution. So for myself, once I came to the understanding of that, and understanding that, that there is a solution, that I don't have to continue self-medicating myself, self-destruction, hurting other people that love me, hurting myself in the process. Once I understood that there is know that I don't have to do that anymore, and that I can commit to something with more meaning, something with more integrity, something that will give me a sense of purpose, and really starting to feel that confidence in trusting this process, and just putting faith into people that know more than I do, and just putting in the effort to try to be a better version of myself. That was when I moved on to the fourth noble truth. There is a path to the end of suffering. We commit to cultivating the path. So the path is the Eightfold Path. So now that we understand where our suffering, that we have suffering, what is the cause of that suffering, and that there is a solution, now we are ready to commit to the Eightfold Path and incorporating the Eightfold Path. So, just so you know, before I jump into the Eightfold Path, as I'm going through each of the Four Noble Truths inside of the book Dharma, Recovery Dharma, there is questions. There's like a section of each Noble Truth, and then there's questions at the end of each Noble Truth that you have to answer. And each question is designed to help you understand more about yourself, and understand more about your addiction, and understand more of where your pain lies. And as I was doing these questions, because I was in rehab, I did these questions alongside other people that were also doing Dharma recovery, and they were answering questions as well. So I was doing this with a group of people, and I didn't feel left out. I didn't feel alone in the process. I saw other people that were struggling with not necessarily the same problems as I have, because other people had different addictions, but at its core, the addiction part, they understood, and that was how we were connected. We all understood that there is an issue that we have, and we would all, we came together at moments where we understood that this was an issue, and that we wanted to get better. So that was a beautiful thing that I got to experience for myself, and just understanding that I wasn't alone in the process. There were other people that were going through what I was going through, and I had people to talk to, people to consult with, and just people that can encourage me, and also if they need encouragement as well, because sometimes it's not always about us. Sometimes on our path, on our journeys, there's going to be people that need help, and it's important that we help those people. It's important that we reach our hand out for people that call for it, and that people that they need the help, and they want to better themselves. I've met a lot of people from both sides. I've met people that want the help, and I've met people that they call for it, but they don't really want to put in the effort to get better. And it's really sad and really unfortunate, seeing people like that, because I see so much potential in people. There's so much that people can do, so much good that people can do in the world. And I feel like sometimes our perspectives on the world, and seeing, from different news outlets and from what other people see online, that perception may get skewered. It may get tainted a little bit. And, there is good in the world. There are people that are doing, that are putting out good energy into the world. You just have to look for it. You have to sift through the debris, sift through the darkness, and that there is light. It may be a little hard to find at times, but it is there. So, moving on to the Eightfold Path, and this time I'm going to go through each section instead of going to the back of the book. And this book has helped me quite a lot in my journey, and still does to this day. I still have the first copy that was given to me by a good friend of mine. And so with the first of the Eightfold Path, we have wise understanding. So I guess for what I'll do is I'll read the first paragraph and just talk a little and just proceed like that. So for wise understanding, the first paragraph in Recovery Dharma, as people engaged in the world rather than withdrawn from it, we can use wise understanding to live without clinging, attachment, or craving. By paying attention to our actions and the results of those actions, we can begin to change where our choices are leading. If we intend to act in ways that have positive results, and if we're aware of the true intention and the nature of our actions, then we'll see better results. Better meaning less suffering and less harm. And that is very crucial, and there's a reason why it's the first of the Noble Truths. Because when we have wise understanding, we start to see life from different perspectives. We start to see life from other people's eyes, and we're not so quick to judge other people, because it's hard. Sometimes we may get so mad at somebody, we may say something, but with wise understanding, not only do we have an understanding of that person, but we also have an understanding in our thought process and the thoughts that lead into the decisions that we make. And we put awareness into that so that we don't cause any suffering to ourselves and onto others as well. So for the second of the Eightfold Path, we have wise intention. And again, just reading off the first paragraph. Wise intention describes the attitude or approach we take toward ourselves and the world. We can choose non-harming by avoiding actions that have harmful results, detaching from the cravings that seem overwhelming in the moment, and developing a kind and compassionate stance toward both ourselves and the world. Wise intention leads us to stop doing things based on ill will, hatred, violence, and selfishness. It impacts all our relationships with ourselves, other people, our community, and the world as a whole. Wise intention, after we have a sense of understanding of what wise understanding is, wise intention is, and I'm going to keep saying this because they all are, but wise intention is very crucial, because now we're starting to understand not only the thought process, but what our intent is behind our actions. We're starting to understand, that our intentions affect everything. Maybe in the moment we don't see it, but it does. It affects the people around us, it affects our community, it affects the world. Like any little action that we put, it's important to understand where our intention lies. Understand and just listen to our heart's intention. It's very important because I see a lot of people online, just famous people, like I would say, like influencers and people who, famous YouTubers, not saying any particular names, but what I notice is the greed, a lot of greed in a lot of these famous influencers, where they make content and they put out a lot of energy and effort into the world for very selfish reasons. And that is, in the short term, it's paying off for them because they're gaining wealth. But in the long term, yes, they may still have the wealth, but there is no wealth inside. And when I say inside, I mean in how they feel. You can have all the money in the world, but how you acquire that money and what you're doing to the actions that you're putting, the intention that you have behind that is not very good, and it's causing you suffering. So it's important that we understand when we commit action, that we understand what is the intention behind the action. What am I trying to gain? What am I hoping to not lose? And it's important that we see that behind our actions. And just to really put this out there, because this is very important. This is not a perfect. No, I don't think anyone, and this is just, I'm just going to speak for myself. I don't do this perfectly. There are days where I do have good understanding, good intention, but maybe my action's off. And that's the thing about the Noble Truths, is we're not trying to do these perfectly. We're trying to put good intention behind trying to follow these as honestly as we can. And some days are going to be better than others, but it's important that we try to remember these things, and if we need help, maybe speak to a friend that knows about it, or just, slowly, just take a step back and, take a quick breather, maybe a meditation, and just try to keep in mind, these teachings. So moving on to the next Noble Truth. We have, let me just make sure that that's right. I apologize. We have wise speech. So, wise speech is based on the intention to do no harm. We've all used speech in a manner that may create harm, lying to keep others from knowing what's really going on, gossiping with the intention of putting someone down or satisfying our desire to be recognized, stealing time and attention by chattering on, or trying to convince others to meet our own needs at the expense of their own. Wise speech includes all the ways we use our voices, including writing and online. Wise speech is it can be a very difficult one. We need to be careful with how we say things to one another, and this is a very big issue that I've noticed that other people do just from online. Again, I don't want to. This is not the platform to to call anyone out or say anything. This is just from my own experience. But just seeing how nasty people talk to one another is just so sad. And not only in person, but online. And seeing the things that people type online is at times very disheartening and very, very sad. And it makes me very sad. because I feel like we sometimes forget that there's, especially online, that there's another person who we're typing to at the other end. And I try really hard not to get into any argument or debate anywhere online, because one of the things that you lose when you talk to someone online is you don't hear the tone. And I feel that sometimes people get so caught up in an argument that if they just heard the tone, then maybe a lot of it could have been prevented. But not even just online, but just in person, for myself. Sometimes I struggle with, talking about, stuff in the workplace. Sometimes I may find myself gossiping at work, and it does steal away time, and it's not even gossip about wanting to bring anyone down. It's just more about just wanting to know, and that's my issue. That's like something that I need to be mindful of, and it happens from time to time. Sometimes I'm able to just steer away from it, and then there's other times where I am involved, and that's something that I need to work on. I'm not perfect in that regard, but I try to keep in mind that I never want to make anyone feel bad. I never want to harm anyone with my speech, or say something nasty, or say something vulgar to anyone. I was not raised that way, and that is not the person that I want to be. If I need to say something to someone, I rather say it to their face and just have a conversation about it, rather than talking to one person about the problem, and then when that person has that information, who knows what they can do with the information. So it's important that we try to speak to other people with, we try to keep in mind the wise speech. And also, wise speech, not only is it focused on what we say to other people and how we say it, online and in person, but I also feel like it also is in regards to ourselves. We need to make sure that we're not talking poorly about ourselves, and I feel like sometimes we can be our biggest critics. And that can be a good thing for some people, and it could be a bad thing. It can be a good thing to self-motivate and to push yourself, but sometimes we may be too self-critical, and we may try to be perfectionists. And life is messy. Life is not meant to, be this perfect, no one's going to have the perfect life, So it's important that we speak to ourselves with kindness as well. And then moving on to the next noble truth, we have wise action. Wise action is also based in the intention to do no harm and to foster compassion, loving kindness, generosity, and forgiveness. We try to do what's skillful and avoid actions that are unskillful. Wise actions ask that we try to make choices based on understanding and not unthinking habits or ignorance. Wise action, for myself, is just trying to treat others as I want to be treated. So if I see someone struggling with something, I typically try, if I can, if I'm able to help, try to help that person. Whether it could be something as little as holding a door for someone, but wise action, wise action is something that I struggle with at times, because sometimes I may get so lost in the day and just get so lost in the present moment that I almost tend to like go on autopilot. And I feel like sometimes like when I'm performing action, that it's not very like in the moment. It's just like me kind of zoned out. And one thing I try to do to bring myself back is I try to focus on my breathing and pay attention to my breathing, and just trying to make sure that we don't do things to harm others and ourselves as well. And a lot of these are in regards to both. Like, it's not just for the other person, it's also for yourself. But we need to make sure that we're mindful of trying to find the balance between those two things. Because sometimes when we help people too much, we leave ourselves out in the process, and vice versa. So with wise action, I try to, just make sure that I'm present, that I'm aware, that I'm focused, and I try to put myself in the other person's position. Like, does this person look like they need help? How would I feel if I was in that position? So that's what another thing that I struggle with is wise action, and just trying to be mindful of it. And wise action is not necessarily just helping people. It may also be with how you spend your time and what you do with your time. For myself, like doing podcasting and writing stories is something that I really enjoy doing. It's something that I want to spend more time in. And when I do these two things, I try to put a lot of wise action and just, being present, being aware of what I'm doing. And it helps me, it helps me gain more confidence within myself when I do these things. And that is what I believe wise action is. So jumping on to the next one, wise livelihood. The final factor in the ethical group is wise livelihood, which focuses on how we support ourselves in the world. Again, the intent is to avoid causing harm. For most of us, our work occupies so much of our time and attention, so how we choose to make a living takes on special importance. Understanding the principle of karma and knowing that unwholesome activity gives rise to unwholesome karma, whatever choices or circumstances lead us to a particular job need to be recognized as having karmic consequences. So, wise livelihood, to sum this up, is what we do for a living. Is that causing harm to other people? And just taking a look at what we do for our careers. Is this something that is helping the community, or is this something that's potentially dangerous for people? And it's really important to understand what our impact on our community is, based on the job that we do. Because yes, maybe the job does pay really well, but if it's affecting people around you in a very negative way, this could be very problematic, because the suffering that you're causing out in the world, that can come back that can come back to you, in different ways, and I'm a firm believer in karma. What you put out into the world is what you will get back. And when we do that, with the knowledge and understanding of, okay, I understand what my job is doing and I really don't care because the money's good and I'm providing. We're kind of accepting the fact that we are hurting other people and we don't care because it's for our own benefit. And that may last for a while, but eventually it will come around to bite you. And, we need to try to avoid harming others, because, the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path, we're trying to liberate ourselves, right? But we're also not trying to cause harm to other people as well. Because the goal is to not only liberate ourselves, but to help liberate others. And by us causing more suffering to other people, we are potentially stopping their chance to heal, their chance to find the potential within themselves. And also, when we cause harm to them, when we cause harm to other people, they may cause harm to others. And, that's a very vicious cycle that needs to break. So moving on to the next noble truth, we have wise effort. Wise effort is the first of the concentration group. It means concentrating our effort on understanding and recovery and awakening. Wise effort isn't based on how much we should meditate, how much service we should do, or how much time we put into a healthy activity. Instead, it's the intention to devote balanced energy to supporting the other parts of the path, particularly wisdom. So, wise effort is something that I wasn't aware that I was doing early in my recovery until I got to that noble truth. Every day just putting in effort to better myself, and also understanding that some days are not going to be as good as others. Some days are going to look prettier, some days are going to be really ugly, but it's important that if we fail, at least we tried, and that we didn't fail due to a lack of not understanding, a lack of effort, and a lack of action. It's important that, okay, if we fail, we'll try a different approach. I have my community that I can fall back on. I have people I can talk to, but it's important that the effort's there. And that is something that I try to put into my everyday, is putting effort into my work, putting effort into my writing, effort into my podcast, effort into my relationships. And at times I feel like sometimes it's spread pretty far out. There's a lot of things I spread my effort towards, and certain areas it may burn out a little bit. But it's important that we understand where the effort is, and that we don't spread ourselves too thin. So for the next noble truth, we have wise mindfulness. Mindfulness, being present to what's going on in our minds, bodies, hearts, and world, is central to the practice of the Eightfold Path. We learn to be present for the ways things are with compassion without judging them or ourselves. Mindfulness is being aware of whatever is present, noticing it, and letting it pass. It's also remembering that we're on a path leading to our freedom and long-lasting happiness. Mindfulness Mindfulness. Mindfulness is something that I also struggle with every day. Just trying to be mindful of my thought patterns, just mindful of everything. Sometimes I feel like I'm not mindful enough, and that causes suffering within myself because I want to be more mindful, but sometimes I need to also recognize that I'm exactly where I need to be in my practice. Sometimes I also compare myself to other people and their practices, and that's also not good because, wherever you're at your journey, you are right where you need to be. And, if you're going through it, if you're struggling, that's exactly where you need to be, because that's life showing you that, although this may be happening now, we need to keep pushing. You need to keep pushing yourself and keep working at it, because eventually things do figure themselves out. And with wise mindfulness, when we are mindful of our thoughts, of our actions, of our surroundings, that helps us to not suffer as much anymore. We become mindful of the solution, and we start working towards that solution. And our minds start to quiet more and more. And we put more practice into our good habits, our meditations, our yoga, our gym time, writing sessions for me, whatever that may look like for you. We try to be more mindful in becoming the solution. And then the last of the Eightfold Path is wise concentration. The final aspect of the Eightfold Path is wise concentration. Meditation practice begins with concentrating on the breath, the body, the emotional tone of the moment, and the process of the mind itself. Because these things exist in the present, if we focus on breath, for example, we're paying attention to the present moment because our breathing is immediate. It's happening right now. Breathing is a natural process that doesn't require judgment or interpretation, and so it eases the mind from the need to react. I feel like wise concentration and wise mindfulness really do go hand in hand. Especially when it comes to meditating. I feel like for me, meditation is so crucial to my practice, and I try to make time every day. And I'm not perfect at it. There are days where I don't do it, but I do try to keep in mind that I do need to at least take some time to just focus, just listen to my body, and just to focus on the breathing, because there's so much that happens in our day-to-day that we forget to just take a moment to just step back and to just breathe and to just take it all in and to just listen to our bodies, to the mind, and it really all does connect. The Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, they all connect. And when we have an understanding of these 12 steps, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, when we have an understanding of these things and we try to apply them to our day-to-day, it's very difficult. It's very hard, and it's a lot of work. And it's, for myself, it's, I still try to keep these things in mind and to incorporate them into my day to day. And it's not easy, but sometimes, we just have to take a step back and just to remind ourselves that it's okay. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves, and sometimes we need to go back and, read over the notes we have or the books that we have. It's okay to relearn everything. I'm 617 days sober, and I still have to remind myself these things. I still have to, pick up the phone and call someone and talk to someone. And with that in mind, it's okay. It's okay that, we do those things. It's okay that we keep reminding ourselves and we keep going back to the practice, because this is what helped liberated me from my pain, from my trauma, from my generational pain. This book liberated that. It helped liberate my suffering. And, new things pop up, but I feel like the skeletons in my closet don't haunt me anymore. I feel like those demons that used to haunt me at night, they're not there anymore. And there's a certain, like when you reach that point, when you reach that moment where your past doesn't haunt you anymore and you really feel at peace with yourself and you learn to love those different versions of yourself, the versions of you that went through all that pain, through that trauma, through that stress, and you learn in your mind's eye to see those versions of yourself and to just give a hug to those versions. It's a truly powerful thing. And just understanding that those versions of yourself never truly go away. They're still a part of you. And, that's what I try to do. Just to remind myself, where I came from. And with that, I will end it on that note. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I apologize for not sticking to a set schedule. Life can get pretty crazy and busy at times. So this is something that I still plan on doing. I just have to remind myself not to let too much time pass. But thank you for everyone who's been patient, and I have a lot planned for the future, so much planned between just what direction I want to take the channel and just other projects that I want to do, between my writing, with books that I want to write and short stories that I have planned out, and direction that I want to take the channel, and just talking to people and meeting people and learning their story and just talking with them with sobriety and with recovery in general. Like, I have so many ideas I want to execute. So if anyone is ever interested in something like that, feel free to hit me up either through the channel or through any of my social medias. And with that, I will send you all off. If no one's told you today, you are loved, you are appreciated, and until next time, take care everyone, and God bless.